Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at AmericanExpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to There Can Only Be One, the podcast that puts together the all-star best of playlists of your favorite bands of artists, and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. So hello to all of our listeners in Aubrey, Texas, and around the world. How are you guys doing? I hope you're doing good, because I am stoked, but also pissed at the same time, because we have one of those situations on this show where I'm going to have to rage a little bit because of the rules of the show that I created. So I have painted myself into a corner yet again, because this time around we're going through the discography of The Cure. And here to join me to hopefully cure my pains and woes on this one, David Rosen from the Piecing It Together podcast. Dave, how are you doing, man?
I am great. It's that end of the year rush, and I'm covering so many things on my podcast, finishing up so many music projects, just nonstop stuff, but I'm always excited to talk about The Cure.
And I will admit that there is a ton of discovery on this episode for me, because while obviously I know The Cure, I know all the songs that came out as singles, I have played some Cure songs live, always fun to do that, but there's a massive, deep discography on this. So first things first, before we get into The Cure, because this is your first time on the show, and I want to give you the space. So Dave, please let my listeners know all about the Piecing It Together podcast.
Sure. So Piecing It Together is a podcast I've been doing a little over 6 years now, where me and a guest will take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies might have inspired it. And it's a fun format where you get to take that main film that we are featuring and go on big tangents on all these other films that deal with similar themes or ideas or filmmaking styles. I do episodes weekly. I also do live episodes in movie theaters with panels of guests. It's been a really fun time. It also takes a big chunk of time away from my music career, but it happens. Yeah, so it's a very fun show. And for any movie lovers who love thinking of films and like, oh, it's kind of this meets this, that's kind of the concept.
See, that sounds fascinating to me. And I'm also slightly jealous because, of course, listeners of the show know that I host It's Not That Bad, where we take a look at bad movies and try to find good things to say about them. So clearly you watch good movies over on your show.
Well, to be fair, I'm known for liking a lot of pretty bad movies. So, I definitely cover a little of both. And yeah, I mean, everybody kind of connects with movies in different ways. So some movies that people think are just trash, other people love. There's just no way to know until you actually watch the thing.
I get the feeling we're going to be talking about movies somewhere down the road for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
But here's what we're going to do on this episode. We're about to go through the 14 album studio discography of The Cure and pick one song from each. And at the end, take those songs and only pick one song from those 14. As always, we are not doing any box sets, any remix albums, compilation CDs, or live CDs. And this is where I have to get this off my chest now, because if I don't, it's going to hurt and it's going to lead to an explosion by the end of the show. We're not doing songs from soundtracks. So once again, I find myself in a situation where the song that most definitely would have been my only one pick, and I'm telling you this right now, dear listeners, Burn from The Crow would have been my only one, but I can't pick it.
I was 13 when it came out, and it was the most eye-opening, amazing song I had ever heard up until that point in my young life. And that's what got me into The Cure. So I'm right there with you.
I mean, let's be honest. The Crow was probably one of the best soundtracks of the entire 1990s, and probably still stands up there as one of the best overall soundtracks, at least of the last 40 years. At least to my, for my money, I would say. But yeah. Fantastic. But yeah, I can't pick it. I can't pick the damn song. No one can pick
you
it.
Can't. No, no. By the way, 14 albums, but if we had recorded this podcast anytime up until like 2 months ago, it would only be 13 albums because it's been 16 years since their last album, which is just insane.
Yeah. And rumor has it that apparently another one is coming fairly soon. So
Yeah.
this will be one of those situations where I have to revisit The Cure once again when that album definitely comes out. But let's start our journey in 1979 and Three Imaginary Boys, released May 11th of that year. The band at this point is Robert Smith, Michael Dempsey, and Lol Tolhurst, although Paul Thompson did play lead guitar on this. Peaked at number 44 in the UK and is silver in the UK. There was one single off of this one that did not chart, 10:15 Saturday night. So Dave, I'm going to toss this one over to you. What's your pick off of this album and why?
So I'm going with Fire in Cairo, and I think that this, even though it's so like old school and like different from everything that would follow from like, well, especially from Faith on, but even 17 Seconds on, it's very different from anything you hear in other Robert Smith songwriting. But it's just so catchy, and it's just a really good, solid, old style Cure song. And this is one that I didn't even really kind of catch on to until much, much later. But once I finally like kind of got into its groove, I was like, yeah, this is a jam. I really like this song.
I think we're going to have this discussion, especially as we get, deeper into the discography, is that there are certain things that people look for when they listen to a certain artist. You have some bands that have very different sounds over the eras. The Cure does have some of those songs that kind of branch out into different sides, although the question is, what is a Cure song is probably going to vary, from listener to listener. Going through this disc, I got the Subway song. I'm like, holy crap, this song's got a Stray Cats kind of feel to this, and I kind of like it. But that was on my short list along with Grinding Halt. Although for this one, the song that stuck out for me was It's Not You. And I think mainly because, and when I'm in discovery mode, and I don't know if you do this too, David, but when I'm in discovery mode, I tend to hook onto things, and it kind of sounds like your movie podcast, where you hook onto things that remind you of other things that you already like. I like Joy Division. So the fact that It's Not You has that kind of Joy Division baseline kind of feel to it really kind of hooked me right off the bat.
No, I could totally hear that. And, the funny thing, part of the reason why I even started a movie podcast in the first place, even though I'm a music guy, is that I don't always think of music in like that kind of a deep way where I'm like kind of trying to find influences and trying to like connect things and stuff like that. Whereas with movies, I always was. So that's why I gravitated in that direction. But I could totally see that kind of connection there. And it's a great pick too. You were talking about some of your other shortlist ones. I was also 10:15 on Saturday night is like kind of the first, like, because I started, like I said, with Burn, and then like around that era, Disintegration and Wish. And it took me a while to go back. And I feel like that was like the first like older Cure song. I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool, even though it's different and clearly much older than their, more recent at the time 90s stuff.
I wonder if there's a direct correlation, because I just picked up on something that you said there. Your launch point into The Cure was Burn.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to influence some of your other picks, whereas maybe someone who jumped on around Friday I'm in Love may lean more towards the more whimsical side of The Cure. So this is going to be very, very interesting, because we're both kind of attacking this, because I'm kind of with you. Burn was the one that really kind of hooked me. So I know there were times through this discovery where I'm like, okay, this is kind of what I was thinking of when I was thinking of The Cure. So be curious to look at all this in the grand scheme of things and compare afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 40% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Moving on to 17 Seconds, released April 18th, 1990. We have a member change now. Michael Dempsey is out. Simon Gallup now on bass, and Matthew Hartley on keys. The album hit number 20 in the UK and number 9 in New Zealand, and is platinum in New Zealand and gold in France. There was one single off of this one, A Forest, which hit number 31 in the UK and number 26 in New Zealand. So David, 17 seconds, over to you.
So I just want to preface this as saying that this was an interesting, exercise going through all these albums this way, picking only one song. And something that I realized while going through it is almost every song that I picked, a big part of it is the Simon Gallup bass line. And so like he is just such an important member of this band. It's just it's ridiculous. Like you always think of Robert Smith, but it's just as much Simon Gallup's band. But I think you have to go with The Forest, even though it's the single and it's kind of an obvious choice. It's just one of the best Cure songs. It's just so good and so memorable. And it's also a song that's evolved over the years. And if you've gone to Cure concerts, I've gone like 7 or 8 times now, or listened to their various live albums, or there's even, there's remixes and all this stuff. There's so many different versions of A Forest, and it's a song that just keeps evolving over time. And it really does stand with their best work.
You say it's easy to go with The Forest. I actually didn't.
Hmm.
For me, I went one track later. I went with M. And one of the things was, it's noted that The Cure was influenced by Joy Division. But then you have other artists who were influenced by The Cure. And as I was listening to this, you could almost hear like an early Nirvana kind of feel to M. I have to wonder, if Kurt Cobain was inspired by The Cure. I actually went to take a look because remember there was that Kurt Cobain mixtape that was out there and some of the songs that he had put on there. And I went to go and see if The Cure was on there. They're not, which actually kind of surprised me. I mean, there's some fascinating songs on there. I was surprised to see that Queensryche's Queen of the Reich was actually listed on that mixtape because I don't necessarily, aside from the fact that they're both from Seattle, I'd never really equate Queensryche and Nirvana. I'm surprised The Cure wasn't on that mixtape, but M is the kind of song that I could have heard Nirvana do a cover of and it would have fit almost naturally.
Oh yeah, that would definitely fit really well. And I think like really, if you were to go beyond that mixtape, like every band seems to be inspired by The Cure. So it's got to be on there somewhere. Like I'm sure Kurt Cobain loved The Cure, but yeah, no, that's a good pick, M, definitely.
Moving on to Faith. Released April 17th, 1981, another member change, Matthew Hartley, now out. The album peaked at number 1 in New Zealand and number 14 in the UK, and is certified silver in the UK. There was one single, Primary, which hit number 43 in the UK. So this one's a bit of an interesting one. I'm very curious to hear what you picked on this.
So I was almost going to go with Primary, but because I went with 2 lead singles right off the bat, I decided to kind of switch it up. And I'm going to go with The Funeral Party, actually, which is almost feels like a prototype for how big and dramatic they would get as we move on into Pornography and eventually get to things like Disintegration and their most recent work. And everything gets like this big, almost like film score style vibe to it. And The Funeral Party just gets like really melancholy and dramatic. And you get like big synths like drowning into the guitars and everything. And it just really paints a really awesome picture. And I love that it kind of like shows you where they're headed.
I love that you said cinematic because this was the first album of the run so far that really felt the most cinematic. And I'm not even counting Carnage Visors, which was, of course, one of the bonus tracks, which is 27 minutes and 51 seconds long. And that's basically the soundtrack to a film that apparently they had shown live a few times in lieu of an opening act. But there are some very, very cinematic songs on this. And it's also why I chose All Cats Are Gray. Fantastic. Like, I love when a song feels like a movie into and of itself. And I mean, when you think about the 80s and the 90s and how music videos really kind of, pulled from that, The Cure was almost tailor-made for videos to be made.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with Tim Pope on board, I mean, you got to just keep making music videos.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I love the fact that they had a film with their music as an opening act. It's a fascinating take, and I'm surprised other bands haven't gone down that road.
It's kind of my dream, honestly. Like with my music, I do collaborate with filmmakers on like really cool film like music videos. They're not performances or anything. I don't perform, but they're like actors and like entire stories and all that, and sometimes more ambient and like weird and surrealist. But one day I really want to make a music video that's like a 30-minute epic, like short film.
Well, I can see where some inspiration will probably come from with some of these albums here.
Yeah, yeah.
Pornography, released May 4th, 1982, hit number 8 in the UK and number 9 in New Zealand. There was one single off of this, The Hanging Garden, hit number 34 in the UK. Off of this one, this was a bit of a struggle for me, audio, or at least listening wise. Like 17 Seconds, Faith, I loved those albums. The whole album for me was a bit of a tougher listen, but I did end up going with A Strange Day off this one. Off of this one, what did you go with?
So I went with The Hanging Garden, even though it's the lead single, but I did cover this song, so I that was part of the reason why I picked it. But also, I've just always loved it. I just think it's just so those drums are just like insane, and the whole thing just has this again to use the word cinematic. It has this cinematic feel that is just so epic and cool and just awesome. I almost went with 100 Years, though. I mean, that opening line, it doesn't really matter if we all die. It's just, I mean, what's more goth than that line?
I wonder though. I mean, like I know personally, I've played Love Song, I've played Friday I'm in Love, so there's songs, and I've jammed on Burn as well. Do you find once you've actually played a song that it's hard to not pick that song when you're looking at an album?
I mean, kind of, although I've actually never really done covers before. So like it was kind of a first time. And so of course my first time has to be The Cure since it's my favorite band. But so it was kind of a unique experience for me, but I still can listen to it and I hear their version and my version is very different. It's like ambient and like weird and turns electronic in the middle. So it's like a totally different style of cover, but it's two different things almost, but with that same vibe going.
The Top, released May 4th, 1984. We have yet another member change. Simon Gallup now out, Andy Anderson now on drums. The album peaked at number 10 in the UK and number 180 in the US and is silver in the UK. There was one single off of this one, The Caterpillar, hitting number 14 in the UK. So off the top, what's on your list?
So I gotta go with The Caterpillar because it's just the weirdest, best song. And like I've got a lot of dark picks on obviously they have a big mix of dark stuff and more poppy stuff over the years. And most of my picks are gonna go on the dark end of things. But this is just the most fun, weird, cute kind of song ever. And it's so great and so strange. The Top is a weird album for me because for the longest time, even as a long, long time Cure fan, like I said, ever since they became my favorite band there at 13, for some reason I thought The Top was like a bootleg. I had this weird picture of it as not being an official album, so I never really went to it very often. And I didn't really get into it until the last like 5 years or something. And so it's almost still a new album for me. And it's still great. I mean, I love a lot of Shake Dog Shake is an incredible live song. Whenever they perform that live, it's amazing. And then Birdman Girl is another song that I had kind of marked down as just as far as the Cure in their weird drug induced mode. It's like about as far out as it gets. So but yeah, The Caterpillar though, I always love that song.
Yeah, the album does throw a lot of different things at you. And again, maybe stuff you weren't necessarily expecting, if you were looking for a specific type of Cure song.
Yeah.
And that's where Banana Fish Bones kind of came in because the title's just weird and I kind of get behind that. But
Yeah.
I'm just literally just going to write down what I wrote here. Almost a weird, freaky carnival vibe, but infectious at the same time. I mean, and you've heard other bands pull off that weird carnival vibe, especially Tool has kind of leaned into that on certain songs as well. But coming from The Cure, I'm like, this is different and I'm kind of grooving on it.
Totally. And I feel like every album of theirs, except for Disintegration, from here on forward, always has like one song that's super weird and freaky like that.
But if you're looking for it and that becomes a signature, that's kind of almost kind of it's kind of like, and I hate to draw a comparison between The Cure and Weird Al Yankovic, but here we are. It's like when you get that Weird Al Yankovic CD and all of a sudden like there's the polka medley, and I'm like, you almost expect it. You want that there.
Yeah, if you were to piece together me, David Rosen, it would be The Cure meets Weird Al Yankovic. So that's fine with me.
Okay, so that's a good analogy to kind of draw on this episode. Okay. The Head on the Door, released August 30th, 1985. Few member changes here. Paul Thompson and Boris Williams now in, and Simon Gallup is back in as well. Peaked at number 7 in the UK, number 3 in the Netherlands, and number 59 in the US. And it is gold in the UK and the US. There were 2 singles off of this one. In Between Days charted highest in the UK at number 15, but in the US, Close to Me charted higher at number 32. So off of this one, what'd you go with?
So first of all, The Head on the Door is my favorite Cure album. Disintegration is the best album of all time, period. But my personal favorite album is The Head on the Door. And I had to go with Push because it is just the biggest blast of emotion and energy I've ever heard out of music. And when I was like first getting into them, like I said, I was already like just totally enamored by everything I had heard. But when I heard Push for the first time, I was just like, okay, this is going to be like my personality for the rest of my life. Like, this is my favorite band. And I just didn't even think it was possible for a song to be that full of just everything that anybody has ever felt anytime. And it's all in there, and it has all the touchstones of a great upbeat Cure song, from, the long instrumental opening to finally Robert comes in with just these incredibly poetic lyrics that are just delivered and just total over the top glee filled, delivery. And it's everything in this song. I would go with either of those 2 singles as my, second picks, although there's so many other songs on here that I love too.
See, I have no notes because I also went with Push, and I think you literally hit every single note that I had written down on my notes about
Nice.
Push. I did have In Between Days and A Night Like This as my shortlist ones, a song that the Smashing Pumpkins would eventually cover as well. And you're right on everything you said on Push. You are absolutely right. It's a hard driver. You get that long intro, and when you're used to that long intro, you're kind of like, okay, we've settled into the groove nicely. It almost like kind of, I don't know, want to say like helps you test the water of the song before you get to the lyrics, but it kind of does that. It kind of has that feeling, lets you get settled in, and then serves you the lyrics. So it's not everything all at once, and it's a feat for a band to be able to make that a signature, where sometimes you're sitting there going, all right, come on, just get on with the, hit me with the lyrics and all that. For The Cure, you're like, no. Gotta ease me into this. And then,
Sure.
and then let Robert Smith come and tell me all about it.
Absolutely.
Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, released May 26th, 1987. Peaked at number 6 in the UK, number 2 in France, and number 35 in the US. It's platinum in the States and gold in the UK. There were 4 singles off of this one. Why Can't I Be You, charting the highest, hitting number 21 in the UK and number 54 in the US. This is where I kind of feel like The Cure is kind of forming into that band that I was kind of expecting. Coming off of the songs that I knew, this kind of seems like the almost natural launch point if you got into The Cure in the early 90s.
Yeah, I think so. And it also, I'm actually listening to the Curepedia A through Z right now. It's an audiobook on like their whole history. And they're talking about how with Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, it's like, it's kind of everything mashed into one giant double album. It's everything that The Cure can be, from their earlier stuff to their later stuff and everything in between. And yeah, they just play with every different kind of color that comes from a Cure record.
So off of this double album, what did you go with?
So I almost went with Catch because it's probably my favorite favorite song on the album. And then I almost went with All I Want because it's probably the heaviest thing they had done up until this point. But again, like I said with The Forest, I don't know how you don't go with Just Like Heaven. It's just like the most beautiful, romantic, perfect love song ever written.
Yeah, I ended up going with that as well. And I think, if you're looking at this like a cassette kind of thing, side C or vinyl, side C is probably the best front to back 5-song stretch that you've got on this album, because I also had One More Time and Hot, Hot, Hot on my short list.
Yeah.
I can't believe the straight up Red Hot Chili Peppers vibe that you had with Hot, Hot, Hot. And, much as like I wasn't expecting like an early Nirvana kind of sound earlier on 17 Seconds, I was not expecting to hear something that would have, sounded perfectly fine with Flea on bass.
Yeah, that is a funky ass song, and it's great. It's really good. That would be a good pick too.
And that's the interesting thing, is that normally when I go through a discography that is this long, and if the band doesn't change or have different kind of sounds, then it can become a bit of a slog. The Cure doesn't do that. You don't get just one type of song. And that made the discovery process for me actually really enjoyable, because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to get from album to album and even from song to song on those discs.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about The Cure, and most of my favorite artists, like I can say that about as well. They go through different phases, they change their sound, they evolve. You want more of, what they did on the last album, but at the same time you want to see what they're going to do next.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't as diverse as the time when we went through the Tiffany discography, because, but the thing is, her career went through multiple different changes. So you were almost getting different artists on every album, especially in those later early 2000s and 2010s years. You're not getting like completely different artists with this, because of course you've got that Robert Smith, just aura through the whole thing. But it definitely made for a variety in the listening, which made this a very easy assignment to go through.
Yeah, for sure.
Disintegration, released May 2nd, 1989. New member in the mix, Roger O'Donnell, now playing keyboards. Peaked at number 3 in the UK and number 12 in the US. It is double platinum in the States and gold in the UK, Germany, Switzerland, and New Zealand. There were 4 singles off of this one. In the UK, Lullaby charted the highest, hitting number 5, and in the US, Love Song hit number 2. At the 1990 Brit Awards, Lullaby won for British Video of the Year, and then the following year, Close to Me was nominated for British Video of the Year, lost to A Little Time by the Beautiful South, but The Cure did win British Group of the Year that year. So now you're starting to get the accolades pouring in for The Cure off of this one, and you already said that Disintegration was the biggest album for them. Your thoughts and your pick?
So yeah, I just think this album is perfect from beginning to end. I could pick any song on here. I could go with Fascination Street because it's probably the best like rhythm and rhythm section ever on any song. Pictures of You is another perfect pop song, just like Heaven. But I would go with the title track Disintegration, which kind of in a much darker way captures what I was talking about with Push. It's a song where every single maybe negative emotion that you could possibly feel kind of all comes out into that one big long centerpiece of the album. And it is just as big and just insanely epic as you could possibly get with a song like this. And it also has just a killer bass line. It has an incredible build as the song continues, because it's a very long song and you would think that it would kind of tire itself out, but it just keeps getting better and better as it goes. And Robert's delivery just keeps getting more and more intense as it goes. And lyrically, it's just the most full song on the album, I think.
Yeah, I ended up going with Love Song as my short list. And again, it's one of those things where I've played that song live. So when you take some time to learn the song, and I say this speaking for someone who has played in a cover band now for almost 8 years, like you kind of learn to love little aspects of the song. So Love Song definitely is on my short list. But I'm going to go with Pictures of You. And I'm just going to literally read what I've got here. It's a John Hughes movie, and literally in about like the amount of time that the song is, it's a John Hughes movie. Like you can almost picture John Cusack just pining for either a Molly Ringwald or an Ali Sheedy or an Ione Skye. And I recognize there's no ghetto blasters in here. This doesn't say anything, but you can almost picture John Cusack in a video for this song.
Yeah, this is almost like the culmination of the 80s. It came out in 89. It's like boom, that's the end. That we finish it up with Pictures of You.
You have to think that if ever there is some kind of music video super cut of every John Hughes film, Pictures of You would be the music used for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We now move on to Wish, released April 12th, 1992. The band at this point is Robert Smith, Perry Belmonte, Pearl Thompson, Simon Gallup, and Boris Williams. The album hit number 1 in the UK and Australia and number 2 on the Billboard 200 and is platinum in Australia and the States. There were 3 singles off of this one. Friday I'm in Love charted the highest at number 6 in the UK and number 18 in the US. At the 1993 Brit Awards, Friday I'm in Love was nominated for British Video of the Year, lost to Stay by Shakespeare's Sister. And at the 1993 Grammy, yeah, there's a dated reference there at that point, right? At the 1993 Grammys, nominated for Best Alternative Music Album, lost to Bone Machine by Tom Waits. So now we've got the one that's got Friday I'm in Love, which is maybe aside from Burn, one of the most identifiable Cure songs that's out there. What's your pick off Wish?
Yeah, I didn't pick Friday I'm in Love, but that's like one of those songs where it's like you can't believe people made that song. Like it had to have always existed, you know? But so my runners up, because I love this album so much, just like Disintegration, but A Letter to Elise has one of my favorite guitar solos of all time. So that was definitely in the running. Doing the Unstuck is just incredible. It's just one of the like Push again. It's just one of the biggest emotional songs. But I'm going with Open because it's my actual personal favorite song of all time. So I think Open captures something so very, very real and special about being somebody who is young and out and trying to figure out what you want to do with yourself and just being completely sick of everything, really, because it's all kind of bullshit. And there's nothing I think you could really identify with more than that feeling. And I think Robert Smith captures it so perfectly in the lyrics to that song. And I think the music matches it just as well.
I know this is a little small thing here, but I appreciate when it sounds like songs are titled for specific things. So the fact that they open with Open and they end with End, maybe it's a band geek thing for me, but I just here for it.
Totally.
Friday I'm in Love was definitely on my short list. And again, this is another one of those songs that I have played live, so you kind of get used to it after a bit. And To Wish Impossible Things was also on my short list. But I'm going with the song that you mentioned, Doing the Unstuck. And I think this is one of those things where the chord progression really got me on this one. And I've said it on the show before. Sometimes it's a lyric. Sometimes it's just a little musical earworm. And sometimes it's literally just the chord progression. This is one of those songs where just the transition from note to note really hooked me on this. And I'm surprised it wasn't Friday I'm in Love.
Yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't a single. That's something that's always surprised me because it is such a great, catchy, beautiful, exciting, fun song. I would also say, along with that songwriting and like the chord progression you're talking about, the production on Doing the Unstuck is just impeccable. There's not many songs that sound as good as Doing the Unstuck does.
We now move on to Wild Mood Swings, released May 6th, 1996. Yet another member change, Pearl Thompson now out, Jason Cooper now in. Peaked at number 9 in the UK, number 12 on the Billboard 200, and number 2 in Sweden, and it's certified gold in the States. There were 4 singles off of this one. The 13th charted the highest at 15 in the UK and 44 in the US. Now, for our listeners who are possibly listening to this off of our website at notthatbadcast.com, as always, we have the Spotify playlist that David and I are making as you're listening to this show. Unfortunately, Wild Mood Swings is one of the only albums that is not entirely on Spotify, at least not in Canada. So I'm not quite sure if it's on in its entirety in the States, but there's only certain songs that are available in Wild Mood Swings. So not knowing what you picked, I can't say for certain if that song is going to be available in the Spotify playlist or not, But if it isn't, I will put a link to a YouTube playlist of the whole album just to be on the safe side, because I want to give the listeners a chance in order to be able to deep dive these albums and let us know in the comments section what their picks are going to be. So now that I got that out of the way, Wild Mood Swings, your choice.
So I want to say, first of all, this is a very special thing because, I don't know if you feel the same way with bands that you love, but the first new album after I got into them, it's always kind of a special thing. But with that said, there was no choice other than Want. I love a lot of songs on this album, even though I know a lot of Cure fans kind of consider it one of their weakest albums, but Want is a perfect Cure song that captures the drama, the epicness, the all of the emotion, everything of just like screaming out that Robert Smith does so well. It's all in there and Want, and the music matches it perfectly. And as an opener, it's just a perfect opening song. So yeah, I had to go with that one. I also really love Jupiter Crash, which is just a great little ballad.
See, I'm of the opposite end on this one because I'm always wary of albums that are followed by, or at least follow a commercially massively successful one, especially when a band, either A, comes out of the gate hot and then has to follow that up. That's where you get that sophomore slump kind of curse. Or if they've kind of, been going along, and then all of a sudden they get huge and then they have to follow it up. And it's like, oh, so what did we do right on this one? Then we have to do. So The Cure didn't do really anything of what was previously on Wish. You're right. This is a very different album, but Want is definitely the best Cure song on this. I did have Jupiter Crash, Numb, and Trap on my short list, but I found some of the songs a little harder to wrap my head around. But right off the bat, Want, it was exactly what I wanted out of a Cure song.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another one that, when you go to a Cure concert, you really hope that they play Want.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a bucket list for me. I've never had a chance to see The Cure live. So if I do get the chance, I am going to jump right on it.
Nice.
Blood Flowers, released February 2nd, 2000, peaked at number 14 in the UK, number 16 in the US, and number 2 in Denmark, and is certified gold in Switzerland. There were no singles released from this album, and that's a decision straight from Robert Smith himself. At the 2001 Grammys, it was nominated for Best Alternative Music Album, lost to Kid A by Radiohead. Now, I'm not going to sit here and slag Radiohead, because it's freaking Radiohead, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Kid A.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Blood Flowers didn't win, but more importantly, also nominated in that group was When the Pawn by Fiona Apple, which is a fantastic freaking album.
Great album, absolutely.
Like, looking at the albums that were nominated for that award, I personally probably would have picked Fiona Apple, but The Cure definitely would have been a close second. So off of Blood Flowers, what'd you go with?
So I went with Watching Me Fall, which is just 11 minutes of awesomeness. It's just beginning to end. It's kind of the first song that I will put on if I'm just in the mood to listen to The Cure. I'll put on Watching Me Fall and probably end up listening to the whole album because I love Blood Flowers. But this is an album that's taken, I feel like, a lot of time to get its recognition. I feel like people were let down when it first came out, and then just everybody kind of came around to it. But there's a lot of great songs on here, even if it all definitely has a very specific tone of just dark, dark, dark. But I also really love The Last Day of Summer, which is just a beautiful, sad ballad, and Where the Birds Always Sing, which is a really awesome song lyrically and musically. But Watching Me Fall has to be my pick.
Given that I wrote that this has like a darker burn vibe to it, I'm kind of not surprised that you picked Watching Me Fall, because I also went with it as well, all 11 minutes and 13 seconds of it. I also had Someday and 39 on my short list. But if I'm being honest and going through this full discography, this is where the albums really pick up for me. These last 4 albums that The Cure have put out, basically everything in the 2000s, they're almost front to back for me. And I don't know what the big switch was, I mean, The Cure were good, but I don't know if they were front to back albums getting to this point. 2000 and on, I was almost not entrenched, but like from front to back, I was all in on every song that was on the disc.
Hmm. It's funny to hear you say that, and I agree. I love, I say recent, but 16 years ago. But I love their, those last four albums so much. But a lot of Cure fans, like, they will talk about the new album, "Songs of a Lost World," which we'll get to soon, as their first good album since like Disintegration and Wish, and like a lot of them just haven't liked these albums that we're about to get into. But I'm completely with you. I have never kind of strayed, and I've just loved all of this recent output. And yeah, it's something about the production just keeps getting more and more rich. And we'll talk about that as we get into these next albums. But I just think Bloodflowers is their musicianship just goes through the roof as we start getting into these records.
Yeah, I love when you have bands that have long careers and those later albums, you can just hear the maturity in the songwriting. You can just hear everyone clicking. Candlebox was like that for me. The debut album came out and it was like literally everything. And then Lucy came out and it was okay. And then you had their third album and it was like, this is good too. This is good. And then they took that long break. And then they came back with Into the Sun. And then you had Love Stories. By the time they got to Disappearing in Airports in 2017 or 2016, 17, it was like literally the best album they had put out at that point. This is kind of that feel for me where it's like they've almost like kind of refound themselves at this point and they're just like, nope, this is front to back. This is us. And this is what you get. And I'm here for it completely.
Well, now I have to listen to recent Candlebox because I have not heard any recent albums from them.
Oh, they are so good. And they are actually going to be at Boardwalk Rock in Maryland in May. So if you get a chance to go out there, definitely catch one of their sets. Self-titled, The Cure, released June 25th, 2004, hit number 8 in the UK, number 7 in the US, and number 2 in Italy. Silver in the UK. There were 3 singles off of this one. The End of the World hit number 25 in the UK. So when you get to that point where the band's been around a long time and they're like, this is our self-titled album, I always find that fascinating. Did this sound like an album that should have been self-titled to you?
Actually, I do. Because I feel like on this album, they're kind of going through their various, like we talked about, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me has it all in one place. But I feel like that's kind of what they're doing here too. They're kind of going back, oh, this song kind of maybe could have fit a little bit on Disintegration. This one maybe could have fit on High. This one, or High, I Wish. This one maybe could have fit on The Head on the Door. Like, I feel like they are kind of going back through their styles and kind of mashing them all together in a new way.
So off of their self-titled album, what did you go with?
So I went with what I think is the most underrated Cure song of their entire discography, and that is Labyrinth, which is a perfect song. And again, like, to bring it back to things like the title track Disintegration, or even Watch Me Fall and Bloodflowers, just the most epic, most insanely over the top, awesome song lyrically, musically. Robert Smith's delivery of those vocals, it is just pure paranoia from beginning to end, and it's just so exciting and awesome. But there are some other songs on here that I was definitely considering, as much as I love Labyrinth. Alt.end is another song that I just find to be so much fun and just like really just great to listen to at any time. And then the opening track, Lost, which as soon as this album came out, it was such a big deal to me when this album came out. And I know there was like a lot of talk about whether Ross Robinson was a good producer to team with The Cure. But as soon as that song starts, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on board.
See, it's interesting. Listening to Lost and Labyrinth, I was like, okay. But then Before 3 came on, it's like, okay, this is where I kind of picked up.
Okay.
Like Before 3 was like the lock-in point for me. But it's on my short list, as is I Don't Know What's Going On. But I'm going to go with the single off this one, The End of the World. We've talked on the show before when we did the Sloan episode, where you had songs that were really happy, but when you actually read the lyrics, it's not a happy song at all. And
Sure.
I'm sure there are a list of songs. I mean, The Way from Fastball is one of those songs. It's a boppy song. And then you read the lyrics and go, oh, oh. Or even Outkast's Hey Ya. You're like, oh, okay, cool. We're going to dance like a Polaroid picture. And I read the lyrics. So no.
Yeah.
The End of the World is kind of like that opposite, where it's like you have these moody vibes, but then when you hear the lyrics, it's like, maybe it is a happy song.
Yeah. No, I do love that too. One of my favorite bands is the Ravenettes, and I'm just thinking of Last Dance, which would definitely fit that kind of narrative there. But yeah, no, the End of the World is a great song though, and maybe if I'm not mistaken, their last song that's really kind of taken off in the way that a real hit single does.
I'm so glad you mentioned the Ravenettes, because we talked about them recently on the Spin Shuffle Skip episode of the Batman City or Arkham City soundtrack, because they're on that and they have got a fantastic song off of that one.
Ooh, I love that song. Yeah, I actually have that episode queued up. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys say about that.
Oh, because that is a fantastic. I'm surprised the Cure would have fit on that soundtrack in a heartbeat.
Totally.
413 Dream, released October 27th, 2008. The band at this point is now Robert Smith, Paul Thompson, Simon Gallup, and Jason Cooper. The album hit number 33 in the UK and number 16 on the Billboard 200 and is gold in Poland. There were 4 singles off of this one. The only one charted the highest in the UK at number 48. The only one, Freak Show, and Sleep When I'm Dead, all hit number 1, though, in Spain. So 413 Dream, what's your pick?
I'm gonna go with Sleep When I'm Dead, which you mentioned hot earlier, which this is kind of feels like a follow up to that in a way, just this fun, upbeat kind of funky song. But I think it's just a great single, and I don't know why it didn't pick up anywhere else except Spain apparently. But I think Freak Show also fits in really well with that too. They both have that funky vibe. You could also go with Underneath the Stars, which is a great classic Cure opening track. I mean, it fits in really well with Want, with Plain Song from Disintegration, and yeah, this is another album. I'm glad you like these recent albums, because a lot of people don't seem to like 413 Dream that much, but I've always really loved pretty much the whole thing.
Oh, I mean, I will stand up for this album because The Hungry Ghost is on this album. I mean, the warble that's on the guitar during the chorus, I mean, that's just pure ear candy right there. But then you got the quiet trail at the end of this song, and this is one of those like little Cure things that they do every now and then. It's like, yep, just it's almost like I don't know how the best to describe it. It's like someone putting you to bed, which is all nice and all that, but then they kind of like rub your hair afterwards. That's kind of I don't know how best to describe that part of that song, but that is literally the only metaphor I could come up with.
I like that. I'm with it.
And if I can just see it now when you see the album come out, or like have all these like 4 stars by this person for this album. It's like being put to bed, then someone stroking your hair. They'll never put that on a promo poster, but there it is.
Yeah, who doesn't want to listen to that album,
right? We now had to wait 16 years for the release of Songs of a Lost World, released November 1st, 2024. So we really only had a little bit around a month and a half to listen to this album. We have a member addition at this point. Reeves Gabrel is on guitar. The album hit number 4 on the Billboard 200 and hit number 1 and strap in for this one here. Hit number 1 in Austria, Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, France, Germany, Greece, Poland, Portugal, Scotland, Sweden, Switzerland, and the UK, and is certified silver in the UK. There have been 2 singles off of this album so far, Alone and A Fragile Thing. And I need to put this out there right now. Front to back, this is the best Cure album, personal opinion. I am so shocked at how good this album is, and we had to wait 16 years for it.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's my favorite album of the year, and yeah, it blew everybody away, and I'm so glad as a lifelong Cure fan to see the reception this has gotten after all this time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember driving along in my car and a Fragile Thing came on the radio on Sirius, and I was like, what is this? And I looked down, I was like, it's The Cure. This is perfect timing because I'm researching this band. Okay, cool. But it was like, it hooked me. I almost felt like I needed to pull the car over to the side and just listen to it. It was that good.
Hell yeah. I'm with you.
So off of Songs of a Lost World, what did you go with?
So it's hard to separate that whole 16-year wait from my reception of the album. But when I heard End Song, I literally had tears in my eyes while listening to that song. So it has to be my pick. It's just the most intense, amazing, overblown, epic, just crazy song. It's 10, 13 minutes. I don't remember exactly, but it's huge. It's dramatic. And the lyrics are just everything we've been waiting for 16 years. It is just, it's amazing. And it's actually even better on Songs of a Live World, the live recording from their album release show. It's just an incredible piece of music. But my very close second is Drone No Drone, which in a lot of ways sounds like Fascination Street 2. And when I hear that song, I think that these are a bunch of 60-year-olds making this song. I'm just like, God, I hope I have this much energy when I'm in my 60s. But yeah, Fragile Thing is also a great song.
See, I had Alone and Drone No Drone on my short list.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a fight. This album is a fight to pick just one song.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mentioned a Fragile Thing and you mentioned End Song, and I am literally looking at a quarter that I'm thinking of flipping to see which one it is, because both songs are so good for very different reasons.
Yeah.
But since you went with End Song, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go with a Fragile Thing, just so we have both songs on those Spotify playlists for our dear listeners to go and listen to. But it's not without reason, because for this, the piano in this is just so haunting. Like, really just adds so much more to it. Like, you were talking about the Simon Gallup bass lines earlier on. The piano sells this piece.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know what? I got a random question for you. I was kind of having a conversation in a Cure fan message board about this. Do you think the girl, a lot of the times, Robert Smith's lyrics, he's like, talking about dialogue with a person, do you think the girl in this song who he's recounting her words is being sarcastic when she says she could die of a broken heart? Because I think she is, personally.
See, now I need to go and deep dive the lyrics again, just to really dig into this. But I mean, it's one of those situations where you could listen to a Cure album, take the lyrics and turn it into movie dialogue, and it wouldn't feel out of place. Like, I'm surprised someone hasn't taken a Cure album and turned it into some kind of almost like Pink Floyd The Wall-esque kind of musical movie.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a movie called Just Like Heaven, but that's just some rom-com. But we we need something, like you said, more like the Wall or something.
Yeah, but don't make it a rom-com. Like, don't take Friday I'm in Love and turn that into a rom-com. No. Like, go moody, go dark. Get Denis Villeneuve to direct it. It'll be fine.
I'm with it.
All right. So now, Dave, you do realize this is where the hard part comes in, right?
Okay.
So, please remind our listeners all 14 songs that you have chosen. And then, David Rosen, if there can only be one Cure song from the 14 that you have chosen, what's it going to be?
Oh boy. So yeah, let's see. I picked Fire in Cairo from Three Imaginary Boys, A Forest from 17 Seconds, The Funeral Party from Faith, The Hanging Garden from Pornography, The Caterpillar from The Top, Push from The Head on the Door, Just Like Heaven, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Disintegration from Disintegration, Open from Wish, Want from Wild Mood Swings, Watching Me Fall from Blood Flowers, Labyrinth from The Cure, Sleep When I'm Dead from 413 Dream, and End Song from Songs of a Lost World. Now, important question. If there's only one Cure song, is it for me or is it for introducing the Cure to the world?
This is literally only for you.
Only for me. Then it has to be Open. I said it's my personal favorite song of all time, so it's got to be Open.
If it's not Burn. I got you.
Sure.
I feel that one.
Yeah.
All right. Off of Three Imaginary Boys, I went with It's Not You. From 17 Seconds, I went with M. From Faith, I went with All Cats Are Gray. Off of Pornography, I went with A Strange Day. From the Top, I went with Banana Fish Bones. From The Head on the Door, I went with Push. From Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, I went with Just Like Heaven. From Disintegration, I went with Pictures of You. From Wish, I went with Doing the Unstuck. From Wild Mood Swings, I went with Want. From Blood Flowers, I went with Watching Me Fall. From The Cure, I went with The End of the World. From 413 Dream, I went with The Hungry Ghost. And from Songs of a Lost World, I went with A Fragile Thing. And this is literally a toss-up again between two songs. A Fragile Thing is absolutely in the mix for that only one, but it's fighting with Pictures of You. And it's one of those things where I could literally pick one of them and the next day I'm go, yeah, but maybe it's this, and then maybe it's this. But I'm going to go with the song that I described as the John Hughes movie, basically in about 4 minutes. I'm going to go with Pictures of You, and then tomorrow I'm probably going to change my mind. But for today, I'm going to go with Pictures of You. They don't make it easy, do they?
They really don't. And you know what's awesome is if I was going to say my second pick, it would be End Song. And the fact that their new album, after all these years, after 40 something years as a band, has songs that we're seriously considering for our favorite Cure song, that's just crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was when you read some of the comments about this, like from the critics, and you realize that people had to wait. I wonder how much of the 16-year wait kind of played into the almost universal embrace of this album.
Yeah, no, it's true. And especially considering the negative reaction to 413 Dreams 16 years ago. People did not like that album when it came out. So to come back and I'm sure even Robert Smith was just like, oh wow, okay, everybody likes it this time. It must have been nice anyway.
Yeah, there's a comment here from the Irish Times that describes it as quote unquote moves like a glacier at midnight. Magnificent, unstoppable, and with a chill that settles in hard and heavy and does not leave. I don't think I could have described it any better than that.
Yeah, that works. Absolutely.
Dave, thank you so much for this. Please remind our listeners once again all about your podcast and where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
Yeah, well, you can find Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. And we do these live shows here in Las Vegas, and I'm hoping to take that outside of Las Vegas, go travel around with them some in the new year. So hopefully keep an eye out for that. I'm on all the socials at Piecing Pod. And you can check out my music. My number one influence is The Cure. Also groups like Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, a lot of the dark stuff is my biggest influences on my music. But it's all out there under my name, David Rosen. My most recent album was called More Content, but I have 2 albums coming out next year. One is a compilation of basically B-sides, but all new songs that I had previously unfinished. And then literally my darkest album ever. It's almost like a concept album is going to be coming out at the end of next year. So I'm very excited about that. But you can find my music, like I said, under my name, David Rosen, on, all the streaming services. I have albums on Bandcamp available, and my website is bydavidrosen.com.
When those albums come out, please let us know. We'll have you back on the show and we'll get the word out, because you are welcome back anytime on this show or on It's Not That Bad.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, and definitely let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. And dear listeners, you guys know the drill. If there's an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, or an album that you want us to cover on Spin Shuffle Skip, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out It's Not That Bad, because there are over 160 episodes for you to deep dive and suffer along with us through all of the bad movies. Until next time, he's Dave, I'm Jay, you guys are awesome. This is There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.